Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP finds out that his wife has put them in massive debt. My wife ran the finances for most of our 30-year marriage. I recently took over after I found out how much debt we're in. For most of our marriage, my wife has run the finances. This arrangement worked well for us, but I always felt like things weren't quite right. We had this arrangement because it allowed me to focus on my career while she ran the household. For most of our marriage, money was always an issue, but not terribly so. I always had a cursory understanding of what things looked like, but really turned a blind eye. In January of this year, I decided that I'd take over completely. This was after our accounts were frequently overdrawn and multiple loans were being taken out in my name. What I found horrified me. We are over $500,000 in debt, including our house, and all of our credit cards were maxed out. I immediately put us on a budget and had to cancel all of her recurring donations to various dog rescue agencies. She's now quite upset with me and is accusing me of making her subservient, locked out, and not including her in financial decisions. I've already managed to pay off well over $10,000 and I plan to continue. Am I the jerk? Edit. There was a lot of sage advice, and some had actually experienced this with their ex-spouses. I think my path is clear and I have some hard tasks ahead of me. Yes, I could have been more involved, and that does make me partially the jerk. The lesson is learned and I will move forward, but she's also committed some errors that could lead to legal problems later. I'm going to choose to let that go in order to dissolve the marriage peacefully, with an understanding that she should accept an appropriately generous offer for alimony. I do not wish her ill will or harm. It's simply not in my makeup to do that. I won't respond to anything else today, but I might do so tomorrow. Not the jerk. She did a terrible job of managing your finances. Everyone sucks here. How do you not know you're this much in debt? It shouldn't be a shock. Just because your wife handles your finances doesn't mean you shouldn't know what's going on with regard to spending and debt. While she may have done a horrible job at handling the money, the real problem is that you two never figured it out together. In any romantic relationship, the formula for success is both finding a plan that the two of you arrive at together that you both agree with, that you both can stick to, and that makes sense. You can't spend more than you make. Not for long. Am I the jerk for skipping my friend's birthday without warning because his girlfriend called me the typical girl best friend? Miles and I have known each other since we were 2 because our parents are best friends. Now, I wouldn't say that Miles is my best friend. He's a good friend and we do hang out on occasion, but we see each other on all major holidays because of our parents. We're in our early 20s. The problem started because of a dumb childhood memory. In 3rd grade, we were in a play together. I played the bride and Miles played the groom. It was just a play with horrible songs and uncoordinated kids. Of course, our parents made pictures and videos of that, and we each have one picture on our family walls. Miles is now dating Lindy. They met 3 years ago and started dating last year. Lindy does not like me. So every time we have a celebration, she makes a comment about me being the typical girl best friend. She one time said I secretly wanted to hook up with Miles. I have no clue where she got that impression from. Miles and I have different friend groups and schedules. Besides the monthly catch-up over food, we didn't really meet that much. Things got worse when Lindy saw the wedding play picture. The comments just got more and more. She even started DMing me on Instagram, saying she knew what game I was playing. I talked to Miles once about this, and he told me to give her time. So his birthday was on Saturday, and I was invited. Lindy wrote me saying something along the lines that she was going to supervise me. This was their first birthday as a couple, and I was not allowed to take up his time. I was honestly just fed up. I tried talking to Miles once more, but he said the same thing. So I just skipped out. When the party started, I wrote a quick, "Sorry, I can't come," and told him my mother was going to bring his present. Now he's upset with me for missing his birthday. Lindy is mad that I made it all about myself, and my parents are upset that I missed a family function. Am I the jerk? Edit. I didn't show anyone the messages because I didn't want to make more out of this than it already is. I didn't want to turn anyone against Lindy, especially not if she's a new fixture in Miles' life. That would make both our lives more difficult. I hope that just talking about it might be the more adult thing to do. My parents are not mad at me or blowing up my phone. They and Miles' parents were just bummed out that this was his first birthday that I ever missed. As to why she's jealous, I have no idea. Neither of our parents ever wanted us to get together. There were no jokes or anything about it. I think they also never want that. The wedding play picture is in the living rooms because they loved the picture and it was our first play. Not the jerk. Miles' girlfriend is insanely insecure and jealous of you. You've tried talking to Miles about it and he won't do anything about it. You're basically getting threatening messages from her at this point. Of course you don't want to be around her. Your parents should understand that their relationship with Miles' parents is just that, their relationship. It's not a family function, whatever they wish it to be. The onus shouldn't fall on you to maintain a friendship with Miles if it isn't working out under the current circumstances. I do hope the two of you can work things out since you've been friends for so long, but you don't have to if it doesn't work for you, and you don't need to feel guilty about it. OP should also show the messages to her parents and Miles and let those messages do the talking instead of trying to explain it herself. Why is it okay to take crap just because you know them? I can never understand that mentality. Good on OP for not going to the party and giving the girlfriend a chance to insult her more. You've known Miles for over 20 years and his family is close with yours. Your not being at his party was noticed and you're taking all the blame for Lindy's actions and insecurities. Screenshot her messages to you and send them to your parents and put it on record that you're not attending was at Lindy's jealous behest, not the jerk. But seriously, if your parents expect your involvement, they need to know the truth of why you weren't there. Not the jerk. He can't have his cake and eat it, as in, he can't refuse to do something about the problem, then get mad at you for doing something about the problem. I understand why you didn't want to go, and I'd probably do the same. His girlfriend doesn't seem worth the mental energy, and she's clearly got insecurities that you shouldn't have to deal with. Not the jerk, but to be honest, I avoid guys like the plague who have a girl best friend, and most of my friends are the same. Like, we have no problem actually being the girl best friend, but we would never date a dude who has one. It's because the girl best friend will always come first, before the girlfriend, because girlfriend is the newcomer. So basically, we as the best friend get to always come first and keep him wrapped around our finger, but not have to actually deal with dating him. Edit. Not sure why I'm getting downvoted. Is honesty just too much for some of you to handle? My wife is 2 months pregnant and told me that she wants to move before we have kids. I'm 31 male, and my wife, who's 28, is originally from Chicago, and I've been married to her for 5 years, and it's been great. We've had one issue throughout: where to live. While dating, I told her that my career and family were in Fort Lauderdale. At the time, I was visiting family in Chicago and frequently traveled there for work. We met, one thing led to another, and before we knew it, we were married. For the past 5 years, she's been actively throwing tantrums about living in Fort Lauderdale and constantly makes me feel like I'm wronging her by not giving in to her desire by moving to Chicago so that she can be close to her 2 sisters and big family. Now that she's pregnant, unplanned, she's claiming that she is stuck here with me and now cannot leave me and pursue people in Chicago. She constantly puts down my small family, who have all been kind to her for the past 5 years, and claims that the only friends she has made here were in her PhD program. Her argument is that, as the mother, she should be near her family while raising kids. Again, besides this, our marriage is solid as a rock. She recently graduated from her PhD program and is only looking for jobs in Chicago. In the meantime, I've supported her while she's been in school and built my career as a wealth planner, focused on fixed income accounts here in Fort Lauderdale area. My hours are long, but not too bad, and I have a solid office that's walking distance from our rented house. Moving to a suburb of Chicago would require me to get an entirely new job and likely lead to an hour commute into the downtown area. Thinking about raising kids and losing an hour and a half of time with them every day sounds terrible. Overall, I'm happy with my life here and would like to raise a family locally and near my parents. My parents are generally helpful and would be more than willing to help us with kids. My wife simply prefers her family. I completely understand her position, but just don't think it's fair to ask me to sacrifice everything I've worked hard to build at this point. Any advice on the situation at all for approaching how I can best navigate? Edit. I'd like to clarify a few points. I see how my comment about her having temper tantrums came across, and I cannot emphasize more that I regret phrasing the situation like that. That came from a place of anger. My wife and I both have said things we regret, and this is likely a reflection of our mutual resentment on the issue. My fear is that she will continue to change her mind about things. For example, finances, baby names, schooling, etc. How do I know she won't just push like this on every issue? Something I did not previously mention is that my wife's family does not like me since they perceive me to be stubborn. The feelings are mutual. As a result, they never helped us get on our feet earlier on in our marriage and career, and often allowed us to struggle while living off my early career income. My wife had some health issues 2 years ago, and we used a lot of our savings to cover those, close to $20,000. Her parents are very successful and could have easily covered the expense. They even bought a baby grand piano around the same time, around $14,000 or so. Everything worked out financially, but I still resent them for allowing us to struggle and certainly do not need them for a support system. I cannot work remote as I work in a smaller office and I'm hoping to acquire the business when my boss retires. I need as much FaceTime with clients as possible so that I can keep their business when this happens. The initial cost of starting my career over somewhere else is more than $150,000, and I may never be in a similar position again. Really fell into a great situation. Before we got married, I made it very clear that I do not want to be in Chicago. She agreed. I understand people can change their minds, but I don't think it's fair to ask me to do the same. Keep in mind, I'm not demanding that she now gets a job or anything like that, but things would change in Chicago. Many of you doubted our marriage's stability, but even she has said that we are absolutely the best of friends besides this issue. We spend as much time together as possible and did not simply get married without thinking about whether or not we're compatible. My wife and I are both highly educated and overthink everything. A lot of you think that she would end up going without me. I really do not think so since we have discussed this at length. The larger risk is her resenting me. She could make me miserable until I give in. I would never be an absentee father. By only looking for jobs in Chicago, she's making it pretty clear that she's going to move to Chicago, with or without you. How do people with incompatible ideas of what their lives should look like get to marriage and pregnancy? Is it with the secret hope that one will just wear the other down and suddenly everyone's going to be happy like that? So, I'm not understanding why you are fine with her sacrificing everything to live with you, but you aren't even considering doing the same for her. She's lived with you in a town she does not like, away from her support system for years. She's now pregnant and starting her career. It's a perfect time to consider moving to Chicago. And why wouldn't you, given that she has lived in your preferred location close to your family for 5 years now? It would take some doing. Maybe you have to work fewer hours. Maybe you have to commute more. Maybe you have to coordinate daycares in your new area so they're close to work. But you could do it. Look, I don't know what you guys should do, but you come off in this post as really selfish and dismissive of her needs. This is a time to focus on her and your new family, and if you don't do that, you will lose them. Yes, exactly. If the main complaint is a possible job, start a job search and see what the options are. Based on his post, they agreed to live in Florida before they got married. Now that she's pregnant, she wants to move to Chicago. If your partner changes their mind on a decision that was agreed upon, you have every right to be shocked. She had 5 years of marriage to decide it wasn't where she wanted to be before getting pregnant. I can't remember if it says how long she lived there before they married. There isn't a compromise to be had in the decision of where to live. If they stay in Florida, he wins. If they move to Chicago, she wins. Moving there to try to figure it out isn't a reasonable solution. If he doesn't like it, then he can't just get his old job and clients back. They will move on and not return to someone they can't rely on. They have to figure this out in some way. Someone will lose, or they will move to Nashville and they both lose. The only good solution was to decide this before they got married and had a kid, but it sounds like OP thought they did that. Am I the jerk for never asking my wealthy in-laws to invite my siblings or immediate family on our big vacations? My wife and I have been married for about 8 years now. I had a pretty generic middle-class upbringing, while her family would be considered old money. I have no idea how much wealth they actually have, but it's multi-generational, and needless to say, they'll never worry about money. They never give us cash outright, but for each of our kids' birthdays, they set aside $100,000 in an interest-bearing account for their college, and they've been extremely generous with the vacations they've taken us on. My wife and I both have pretty good jobs, and while we have the security of knowing if we ever needed it, they would help us, we are able to support our not very fancy lifestyle ourselves. This July, we're going on a trip with our kids and her family, including the nuclear families of her 2 siblings, and then a few family friends of theirs. Mother-in-law and father-in-law are paying for everything, including the flights, the villa we're staying at, and various meals and activities. This will be their 5th vacation like this that they've taken us on, not including our honeymoon that they paid for. I never imagined being this close to that kind of wealth, but before I have to say, they've been nothing but welcoming and generous with me, even offering me high-paying jobs I probably don't deserve, and offering to pay for my grad school if I choose to go. My sister recently asked me what my summer plans were and if I had any trips. I told her about this one, and she got noticeably annoyed and jealous. She asked me why I've never asked about inviting her and her family, since other friends of the family get invited off into these big trips. Some have had 10 to 20 non-family members there that they hosted and paid for. To be honest, I never even thought about asking to include my relatives in that, but I feel like that'd come off a little greedy, so I just don't. I told her that, and she thinks I'm being selfish. I think a lot of it is just jealousy, which I can understand, because she's complained about never being to Europe, and it's splurging for her to just go on a regional vacation. I do feel like that is kinda totally unrelated to my situation though. Not the jerk. Your sister is jealous and overstepping, and yes, you would come off as greedy. It's not your place to suggest to your in-laws more people to bring along on their trip. They're taking their daughter, her kids, and her husband. You are the +1 in this case. That gives your sister 0 reason to expect to be included. Enjoy your trip. Tell your sister to be brave and make her demand to your in-laws for an all-expense-paid vacation. Then watch how she shuts up. Your sister wants you to do her dirty work for her at the risk of losing your privileged position with your in-laws and insulting them plus your wife. She seems a bit immature to not realize yet that life isn't fair and she can't get whatever she wants. Not the jerk. Would I be the jerk for not letting my roommate have her boyfriend over at my house anymore because she won't let him help me? I, 26 female, have a roommate who's also 26, who I've known for over a decade, and we are also now coworkers. She's been here for about half a year, and ever since she moved in, she's always had a boyfriend that stays over, practically lives at my house half the days out of the week, which doesn't bother me enough to say anything about it, but at the end of the day, it is another person being over at my house all the time. The issue that's recently sparked up is that I messaged her and asked if he could help us take some things from the garage to the dump, so we can clear it out since my garage is filled with both her and my stuff. In my head, he has a truck and is a guy, so he would be able to help us move heavy things, and usually guys love helping women with this kind of stuff, so why not ask, right? She responds with, "I'm not going to ask him to do that. He already does enough for me, and it's not his responsibility." Now, I'm not an unreasonable person. I understand that it isn't technically his responsibility, and I never insinuated that. I do feel like it's a fair thing to ask of him since he stays over at my house rent-free. It makes me feel a bit uncomfortable and unliked and rejected having people live in my house who don't think I'm worth helping with things. Yes, I plan on having a talk with her about this, but I just wanted to get outside perspective to help me see if I'm being rational about this before I have the talk with her. Edit. I asked a friend of an old friend if he would help me move the stuff from my garage to the dump. He said he's happy to help and offered to use his truck since it's bigger. I will be buying him lunch since he's doing it during his lunch break. As for the roommate situation, I've decided to stop expecting friendly favors and will discontinue being lenient on the amount of rent paid and will no longer tolerate late payments. You guys share a house. Your garage is full of garbage that belongs to both of you. You want it cleaned out. You asked if your housemate's boyfriend, who has probably seen the garage, if he could help haul it away. You didn't demand anything. Judging by the living arrangements and her response, you're probably feeling disrespected and pushed out of your own home. Not the jerk, but if your friend is that angry with you for asking for a favor, you may want to reconsider future living arrangements. Tough spot for you to be in. Best wishes going forward. What is the rent payment like, besides you already taking less than agreed due to her circumstances? How does utilities work if he's there so often? Does the rates go up and is she covering that? If not, him helping you with household tasks like that in lieu of additional utilities seems reasonable. Either way, this situation now sounds uncomfortable, and you should review the roommate agreement and see if you both want to continue on. OP. She gets her own bathroom and private kitchen and living room, and all utilities are included. We agreed on $700, but she's been paying $600 instead, which I was happy to do because when she first moved in, she was an absolute delight, and I wanted her to feel welcomed and appreciated. Not the jerk. You essentially have 2 roommates, and it's generally expected that all roommates contribute to take care of the home. Grow a spine. Ask him yourself, and then dig deep and tell your one official roommate that they can pay more to include the extra roommate and outline your expectations of home chores. Honestly, I'm a sociopath with high self-awareness, and I would have to control myself from taking advantage of you on a regular basis. It's a compulsion I struggle with, and a reason I cannot be friends with mentally or emotionally weak people. You strike me as both. It's something you should work on to avoid people like your roommate from taking advantage of you throughout the rest of your life. Victim blaming much? People like you are the #1 reason why good people are reducing in number day by day. Although I appreciate your advice, which is very solid to be honest, but you didn't have to call her mentally and emotionally weak. She is not a mental patient who has an urge to use and take advantage of people like you are. She saw that her friend needed help, so she chimed in, but her friend turned out to be a jerk. But none of that is her fault. My wife thinks I'm a coward for not fighting a homeless guy who was rude to us, and I think she's a jerk for expecting me to. So I'm 30 male, and my wife is 29 female. We celebrated our 9th anniversary by going out overnight for the first time since we had kids 8 years ago. It was a really big deal to stay at a hotel away from our kids. Grandparents were watching them. We live in the country and have not really been to the big city a lot, so we're not used to how things work down there. We were walking around seeing all the different sights and doing tourist things when we decided to try to rent those electric scooters that you see on the street corners. I set mine up on the phone and it worked fine. However, my wife could not figure it out, so we switched scooters and phones, so she was using my original scooter and was using my phone, and I was on her scooter using her phone trying to get it to work. About 10 minutes of me messing with this to no avail, this homeless guy runs over with, what he told us later, were 2 cases of stolen soda. He told us that we were dumb tourists and give him my phone and he'll fix it. I figured, why not? And I let him use the phones, and he said we were dumb tourists again and that we never put the payment type in for my wife's phone. I just joked with him and said, yeah, we are from the country and have never used this kind of stuff before. He said he is so much smarter than me and my wife and that he was practically a genius. My wife shot back that he was just street smart and she was a lot more book smart than he was. I just laughed it off and told him, yes, you're a genius. Can I have my phone back? And he gave it back and ran off yelling that he was going to sell his stolen soda for free food. My wife brought this up 4 days later, saying she was mad I did not defend her from the crazy homeless guy, and I'm a coward for not fighting with him over the fact that he called her dumb. We had a huge fight over this, because from my point of view, yeah, he was rude, but it was more funny the fact that we couldn't get the scooters to work, and a random homeless person told us that we were dummies and showed us how to do it, and it's not worth it to fight a homeless person because they're rude. Her point of view is I should have defended her from the homeless person and have gotten into a fight to do so. Am I wrong here? Edit. It seems like I was not very clear, and I've seen a lot of comments thinking my wife wanted me to assault the guy. She was not necessarily wanting me to assault him, but to get into a verbal argument and fight with him, which I believe could become physical, because he called us dumb. Dude, don't hand your phone to strangers in the city. You're lucky you got it back. Not the jerk for refusing to argue with a stranger though. Not the jerk. I can't believe she's so insecure about her intelligence that she actually told a homeless man she has more book smarts than him. That's what a petty kid does. Who cares what some random homeless guy says? The fact that she wanted you to physically fight the guy is literally crazy. What type of people is she spending her time with, or what shows is she watching where it seems like a normal next step to her? Arguing with any stranger on the street about who is smarter is one of the dumbest things anyone can do. What are you, 12? OP didn't argue with anyone. He laughed it off and possibly de-escalated the situation. Karen divorces me and demands to still use my car. My ex-wife, who's 37 female, and I, 31 male, were together for almost 6 years and have 2 daughters, who are 5 and 7. She filed for divorce because she wasn't happy anymore with me, and we've now been divorced for almost 2 years. It was very difficult for me, especially not being able to see my daughters all the time, but we were able to arrange a 50-50 split custody agreement, and I also pay court-ordered child support since I earn significantly more than her. But looking back, I realized that divorce was the right decision, and the divorce has motivated me to pursue my career more and focus on my physical health. It has definitely paid off. I'm in the most comfortable position financially that I've ever been in and have been in the best shape of my life. So I guess in a way, the divorce was a start for me to reach my full potential. My ex-wife and I have a good co-parenting relationship, but nothing more. I've been doing great, so the last thing I want is to have my ex entangled in my life more than she already is. I only communicate with her about the kids and shut down any attempt of her trying to involve herself in my life that doesn't involve our kids. My ex recently called me and told me that she hasn't been doing great financially and that she has completely burned through her savings to pay rent and bills on her own to the point where she had to sell her car a few months ago. She said that she's been using public transportation to get to work and pick the kids up from school, which she says completely stresses her out because it's an almost 1-hour bus ride to her work, making her late a lot and having no time to properly do anything besides work and picking up and taking care of the kids when she has them. I currently own 2 cars, one that I use on a daily basis to go to work and run errands. I bought a more expensive car about a year ago, and I pretty much only use it when I'm going out on weekends or out on dates. Knowing that I have 2 cars, my ex asked me if she could use one of my cars to help her out so that she can have a life besides work and kids. I told her that her being able to have a life besides the kids has nothing to do with me and is not my responsibility. I told her that the kids are my only responsibility towards her and that anything else in her life is her problem since I'm not her husband anymore. She told me that I'm insensitive and that being terrible isn't going to lead to anything. I just told her that the financial security that I provide isn't something she has the right to anymore and that she has to deal with her own problems now. Am I the jerk? Edit. Everything our kids need is within walking distance of my ex's place. It's her job that requires her to take those hour-long bus rides. I'm not gonna leave a judgment, but you sound so bitter. Maybe get some therapy. She's the mother of your kids. Your job as a father should be to make their lives easier. You sound like a jerk, and I can only guess why she divorced you. You'd be helping your kids, which is what you should do. And be careful of alienating your kids from their mother because your bank account is larger. That would be considered mistreatment, and courts don't like that. Be a decent human being. I'll vote no jerks here, purely on technicality, because technically you're right. You don't have to let your ex borrow your car or let her have any more emotional space in your life beyond your kids, but I don't really understand how you don't see that your ex being miserable will have a negative impact on your kids. Your problems aren't mine is quite the ignorant notion towards someone who's raising your kids 50% of the time. There will always be an entanglement. Also, to me, it doesn't sound like you're being completely honest about being in a better place than when you were married. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so unempathetic towards your ex-wife. You're the jerk. You're not responsible for her, no, and I don't think you should give her your car or be responsible for her. But don't forget your kids here. Even if the situation is entirely because your wife is terrible, don't you want to be good to your kids? What you should be thinking here is, what can I do to make things better for my kids? Which may or may not involve you doing something for your ex. You can't say you're 50-50 parenting when you don't give a hoot about them the other 50% of the time. Have a grown-up conversation. How can you both parent your kids better? You're the jerk. This post comes across as very smug and cringy. You spent half the post talking yourself up. What has your fitness got to do with anything? Basically, she wounded your ego by leaving you, and now you get to lord it over her financially. I doubt many of these women you're pursuing would be very impressed if they knew the mother of your kids is struggling to survive, even more so that you have an extra car on the driveway whilst they have none. Do you want your daughters to look back at their childhood and remember the disparity in both your living situations? Lavishly at yours and scraping by at their mothers, knowing that you go on expensive dates and have a flashy car to peacock them around in? Or do you want them to look back and remember you gave their mother a car so they could get to school and extra money so they could buy groceries? Personally, I'd choose the high road, but it's up to you. Am I the jerk for not removing the Disney items from my house? I'm 35, female. My husband, who's 38, and I are what you would call Disney adults. We used to work for the parks in college and met there. For us, it has sentimental value as well as being something we both loved from our childhood. Now, we are conscious to not be those Disney adults. We can hold conversations outside of the movies and parks. We both work well-paying jobs unrelated to the company. We have other hobbies and interests as well. Our son isn't big on Disney, and we're cool with that. It's just something that we enjoy, as well as our daughters. We nurture all of our kids' hobbies and interests. We also don't blow all of our money on this stuff. I know I may sound overly defensive, but we get a lot of comments from people who don't know us well. Anyway, we live in a renovated farmhouse on a bit of land that includes a barn that we finished off, with hopes to make it a guest house one day. In the meanwhile, we've had a relative get married here, and it was gorgeous. Now my sister, who's 28, wants to get married on our property, and we were all for it. Everything's been planned for months, and the wedding is in June. It's set to be outside completely, but if it rains, we can move the party into the barn. The only reason a guest would have to go in our house is to use the bathroom. We have 2 on the first floor. The only Disney items are Winnie the Pooh hand towels. I told my sister I'd replace them with regular ones. Wedding space has no Disney items. However, she wants me to take down everything Disney on the first floor of my home, as guests will see it. We have a lot of Disney items: pictures, paintings, blankets, Funko Pops, decorations, figurines, dishware, etc. And a lot of it is subtle or vintage, but you can still tell it's Disney. 1. This would be a massive undertaking. It's not as simple as shoving stuff in a closet. We'd have to pack it up and find a place to store it. The sheer amount would require at least 2 hours of packing, not to mention storage and unpacking after. 2. It's ridiculous to me. Who cares if people see? She says it looks tacky and she doesn't want people to remember her wedding for that. I told her no. We're decorating the outside and barn as she wants. We're letting her use our property for free, which she keeps bragging about to friends as it's saving them a ton. When my husband and I stood firm, she whined to our parents, who told us to grow up and take it down. Not the jerk. Your sister doesn't want her wedding to be associated with Disney? Your sister wants full control of the space and decoration. I have an idea. She should rent her own venue. Seriously, enforce your boundaries and say that's as far as you're willing to go. If she wants to change everything, she needs to rent a different venue. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.